Item 4, sorry, we better take us through. Apologies, there's a number of apologies. John Cunningham, I understand, is ill, and Gwenetta Clark is also on holiday or away. And so item 3 is declarations of interest. Do you want to take us through those?
Yes, thank you, Leader. It's in relation, if I can firstly advise you in relation to item 4 on the agenda, which is Blaenau Gwent request to collaborate as an SRS partner. The Leader, my understanding is you have a personal and a prejudicial interest in relation to this item, as you are a company director of SRS Business Solutions.
Yeah, I accept.
Fine.
I'll now leave in order that Anthony can take the cabinet through it.
I don't think you need to leave yet until we perhaps sort of finish the item. You can leave at the start of the item number 4. There are other interests that need to be declared.
Take us home then.
The Deputy Leader has a personal interest only in relation to item 4. As my understanding, Deputy Leaders, you are a council-appointed SRS board representative on SRS Public. This is a personal interest only, so you may stay in the room and participate in the discussions. Thank you.
Yep, that's fine.
And this is just to note in the minutes, because it's not strictly declarations, but the Chief Executive is a non-voting chair of SRS Public and SRS BS Limited. And Richard Edmonds is a company director of SRS BS Limited. The other interests are in relation to item number 6 on the agenda. My understanding that Councillor Lewis-Jones wants to declare a personal interest, as Councillor Jones, you are a member of Pontypool Development Trust. And then with regard to item 6 generally, it's noted that there's no specific mention of RSL and which it is. So my advice is the members don't need to declare any further interest in relation to item number 6. Thank you, Leader.
Right, thank you for that, Danath. Now then, as has been said, I have an interest in this first item, so I leave.
Right, it's for me then to invite the person to deliver item number 4 then. It's Matt. Hello, Matt.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll walk you through the paper for what is the Blaenau Gwent request to join the SRS as a partner. The first thing to say from my perspective is it's almost a moment in time to celebrate. It's a really positive position to be in. The business case that's been worked through is of incredibly high quality, and the comments from Blaenau Gwent Council themselves as well is exactly that it's one of the best business cases they've seen. It's got the greatest amount of detail and is kind of filled out in the proper way as according to Welsh Audit Office recommendations, and that's why we did the business case in the way we did, because it's robust and it's done in an appropriate way. So if I walk you through the key points of the paper as it's been provided. The key messages on the document are Blaenau Gwent have done a review of their service model. They did one before we got involved with them to start with through PricewaterhouseCoopers and through an existing collaboration they had before we arrived. And we've done one since as well. So we've been involved with Blaenau Gwent Council from an interim management perspective from around December 2014. And the business case started in around August 2015 and took about 3 to 4 months to complete. So a number of challenges that existed in Blaenau Gwent Council from an IT perspective, and the strategy of the SRS clearly supported what they wanted to do going forward, as well as our own organisations. And the final key message there is that the governance arrangements of the SRS, it's been through the SRS board, so that requires us then to bring it back through cabinets within each partner organisation. So as we stand at the moment, it's been through Gwent Police, it's here today for Torfaen Cabinet, and I'm presenting this exact same content tomorrow at Monmouthshire Cabinet as well. So the following pages talk through the kind of review process, and we used the Welsh Government 5-case business model. That's the standard business case that's used by the majority or the bulk of Welsh Government projects. So it's been through a very robust process. We actually had the person involved who wrote the model. He started this process with us, and then we kind of concluded the process. And out of that process, it was felt that the status quo for Blaenau Gwent was just unsustainable. They couldn't continue as they were. Something needed to change. The business case process then helps you understand what those things are that could change. So we went all the way from do nothing to do minimum, right the way through to look at, what would the service be like if it were outsourced to a different organisation. So there were 6 or 7 different options that are detailed in the exec summary, which is an appendix to this document. And essentially what we ended up with was the list of things that we do and the list of things that Blaenau Gwent ICT do. We matched those things together. We call those the essential services. The essential services are really the kind of low-hanging fruit. We both do them, so therefore let's do them together. Then there's a piece about retained services. So there are things that Blaenau Gwent did that we don't do. And why would we transfer those across to the SRS if we don't provide those services to our existing organisations? So they're called retained services, and they have been retained as part of this recommendation within Blaenau Gwent. And then there's a piece which is enhanced services. Enhanced services are things that the SRS do that Blaenau Gwent ICT did not do. So they were almost opportunities to improve the level of service in Blaenau Gwent or provide new services that are not there now because of the collaboration. So the paper goes on to talk about the kind of benefits of option 4, the net present value of that opportunity, and the fact that we're going to try and co-term this to the end of the existing SRS Memorandum of Understanding, which is July 4th, 2021. We know from the work we've done with Blaenau Gwent, the size of the council, the number of staff members that will come across as part of a TUPE process when the staff come over. We know what the user base is. It's all within the document there. So it's kind of in size, if you like. It's between a Monmouth and a Torfaen. That's the kind of size of the organisation from an IT perspective. So we go on to document the issues and the findings throughout the document. What we're not talking about is a lift and shift on day one of everything that Blaenau Gwent has. That would almost cripple the Blaenau Gwent service from day one. So we want to kind of just run the service to start with, and then over a 3-year period we'll look at integrating their infrastructure into what we do. So there are quite a lot of benefits listed through the document. Some of those financial, some of those service related. What I can say is that they're kind of day one benefits. So the 163k that's listed within the document as a benefit for the SRS, that's a day one sum of money that will come across for the management service that's provided back to Blaenau Gwent from the SRS. There will be further benefits from that day onwards into the 3-year period for infrastructure migration. So it could be that we end up sharing systems. If you look at the work we've done with Torfaen and Monmouthshire, we know that buying a telephone system together is £110,000 cheaper than it is by buying it separately. We expect that cost to fall even more when there are 3 organisations doing this together rather than just 2. So the paper, it refers in section 5.2 to that 163,000, talks about what it's made up of in 5.3, and then there are some suggestions of what we will do as an organisation with that money that comes into the SRS. And it's a combination of trying to improve the service and trying to make our service sustainable from a support service perspective, I guess, as well. It also talks about 5.5 onwards, the kind of bits that we're not going to transfer into the SRS. So it's things like information security, particularly. We've just removed information, or in the process of removing information security, for it to be a standalone service within Gwent Police. We're doing that from a kind of service integrity perspective. I don't want to be managing both of those things. I don't want to manage IT and information security because there's a kind of overlap between the two. So it would be pointless for us to bring the information security function in Blaenau Gwent into the SRS only to then have to transfer it out to wherever it ends up residing permanently. So we'll leave information security there. We're also leaving a couple of operations staff there. Initially they were in the business case. We've decided to remove them as part of the case and leave them in Blaenau Gwent because they provide things like printing services and payslip services that we just don't do in the SRS. So it would be trying to do something we don't currently do. We'd much rather leave it in a group of people that can do that now. So section 6 goes on to talk about the consultation process, who we work this case through. So from a Blaenau Gwent perspective, it's been through CMT, it's been through scrutiny, it's been through full council. It was approved at full council to request to become a partner on January 21st. From an SRS perspective, it was approved at the SRS board to come into the cabinets on January 19th. So we tried to line up all the different places that the paper had to go and the approvals that it had to achieve so that we can get to this final point for Torfaen and Monmouthshire. So when the cabinets give the final answer, we know we're basing that on everything else that's been done up to that point. We don't need to go back and do anything differently. So it's, from a risk perspective, we've put the risks of this paper through the SRS board. The risks to the SRS include, we've kind of looked at a whole range of things from, with a new organisation coming in, does that in any way destabilise the existing partner provision in the SRS, and how do we mitigate against that? We talk about what we're going to use the funding for, so we know we want to try and bolster our service when staff are providing things to Blaenau Gwent the other way. So we've tried to cover off those whole range of risks as well, and that's also been through the SRS Public Board. And the SRS Public Board were comfortable with that, which is why we're now here at the two individual cabinets. Attached to the paper, as an appendix, is the actual Blaenau Gwent submission. It's only the exec summary. The paper in its entirety was over 90 pages for the business case itself, and the back-end documentation as well, all the theory behind the numbers and how they're all built up. And how the transition will work, that's all in the back-end documentation as well. So the exec summary was there because we felt it was useful for the cabinet to see if there were any questions around how was this described to Blaenau Gwent, what does it mean to them, and kind of the process it's been through there. So I won't walk it through that entire paper, the appendix, but I'm happy to take any questions on the paper itself or the Blaenau Gwent business case or the process it's been through to this point to get here.
Okay. Thank you, Matt, for that presentation and for the hard work that you've put into this and to the running of the organisation as a whole. I think it's very welcome that there's interest in joining the SRS, and that's a good news story of collaboration across the councils and the police in Gwent, and a collaboration I'm glad to see succeeding and spreading, helping us and Gwent Police save money, improve services, avoid costs and drive efficiencies by doing things together and doing things once. So that's very welcome. You mentioned just one example of the savings from the telephone system, and I know there's other savings that that can be brought, and also costs that can be avoided compared to if we try to do things separately. So I think it shows that we're, along with Monmouthshire, Blaenau Gwent now and Gwent Police, we're not sitting around waiting for reorganisation or any other change. We're getting out there and trying to do things more efficiently and working together. Does anyone else want to come in on this item? Councillor Yell.
You mentioned in passing that you're going to, or you will be speaking to other partners. So broadly speaking, the other partners you anticipate are on board with this and everything is going to go through. And the other partners presumably have looked at risks and they are minimal or non-existent. You're happy with that?
Yeah, very much so. So at the last public board meeting on January 19th, all partners were present. And it was, from a SRS board perspective, Blaenau Gwent came and presented the exec summary from their side. They then left the room, and the SRS public board received my paper, which was the SRS mirror paper, if you like, to the Blaenau Gwent one. So we've had two separate papers, Blaenau Gwent's, which quite rightly is their own with their own risks, and we've had our SRS paper with our risks. All the partners were at that board meeting and were comfortable with what was in that paper. And then I guess we discuss and the approvals at this meeting and the Monmouthshire meeting tomorrow based on the information we've provided so far. But you have no issues.
The accommodation of Blaenau Gwent within this particular partnership isn't likely to detract from the strength, the health of the existing partnership. It will add to that partnership. Yeah.
Absolutely will. So all the work we've done to this point, the creation of the business case, the interim management of Blaenau Gwent by our staff, that's all been funded by Blaenau Gwent. So there's no kind of detriment to the organisation as we stand. And going forward, we will strengthen frontline operations and lower levels of staffing as the two come together. So we're almost trying to provide the same across the Blaenau Gwent with the same management structures with very little increase there. But we're trying to increase the frontline service desk staff, repair staff, application development, infrastructure staff. So we'll have greater resilience and flexibility at that level, which is where we need it, and not at the top level.
Any others? Lewis?
Yes, certainly good news. I know it's probably about 4 or 5 years now since SRS was set up, and we did talk about it at the time that we were going to have racks and racks of information throughout the country, So it's really good to see it starting to take off. But one of the bread and butter things I was going to ask about was like community safety. All the CCTV monitoring was going on up there. Is that still going on at a pace or not?
Yep, so CCTV is still provided from staff that are within our structure and within the building. And we are actually talking to a number of other organisations about how we can grow that service. We've recently added alarm monitoring to that service, so costs that are currently going out from the council for schools, for buildings to be monitored from a legal perspective, we can now provide that service from Blenheim. So Parmji Sandhu in particular has increased what we can do from that facility to take more business and more business. And I think what we'll see is that expand across the region, because no one else has got the level of accreditation on the facility that we have.
Any more? Right, take a show of hands for. And that's unanimous.
Right then, this is item 5 then. Over to you, Alison.
Okay, members, this is a short report which will be going to all of the 10 local authorities involved in the city deal, or the proposed city deal, and its purpose is to give the leader authority to be involved in signing what's going to be referred to as a heads of terms document, which is likely to take place around the beginning of March. We don't know the actual date at the moment. I think the important point to make is that the leader being involved in signing a heads of terms does not commit this organisation to join a city deal. It doesn't commit us to making any financial contribution. It commits us to entering into further in-principle discussions about how a city deal might be taken forward. So, but of course we don't want a situation where the leader would be seen in public signing such a document without any information being given to the council in advance. So that's the main purpose of the report. I should say, sorry members, in paragraph 1.1 there is an error. This is a generic report that every cabinet is receiving, or council is receiving, and the first paragraph says that the members had a progress report in December 2015. That's not correct. You had a report on the 17th of June 2015, so I don't know how that date slipped through. It's my fault, I'm sure. So apart from that, the last time you had that report was 17th of June, and if you remember, you then signed off a small amount of money to enable us to fund a project team to get the city deal underway, and we haven't brought a report back since then. This is a very fast-moving process, as you can imagine, because the Chancellor is pushing the timescale. But what's actually happening at the moment, and happened yesterday, is that there's a negotiating team of 3 leaders, which is Councillor Peter Fox, the leader of Monmouthshire, Councillor Andrew Morgan, the leader of RCT, and Councillor Phil Bale, the leader of Cardiff. And those 3 negotiators met with Welsh Government yesterday afternoon. We don't know the result of those discussions yet. And they're now meeting with Greg Clark and Stephen Crabb today in London to try and thrash out what this deal will look like. The overall envelope of the deal is £1.28 billion for the Cardiff City region. There isn't a time scale around that as yet, and that's part of the negotiations. And the way that that's intended to be broken down is £580 million from Welsh Government, a lot of which is related to the Metro funding, 120 million from local government across the 10 authorities, and we're looking for the additional £580 million from central government. Now that's what those leaders are going to London to discuss. Whether that comes out as 1.28 billion, we don't know at the moment, because we don't know what the ask from the central government will be. But that's as much as we know as at today. So if and when those discussions, those negotiations are completed and we know the size of the deal, we know that the Chancellor will want to announce on the 14th of March, which is his budget, that there is a Cardiff City deal, assuming the negotiations go forward. And at that point, before that 14th of March announcement, that's when the leaders of the 10 authorities are likely to be asked to sign this document, which is a heads of terms document which doesn't commit councils to anything at the present time. So really just for you to note the contents of the report and to be aware that the leader will be asked to participate in that at some point in the near future. Leader, I know you want to say some things as well.
Right. Well, there's little to be said other than what you already said. And I don't want to go over that. The key issue is it is to commit the council to anything. We've got to come back after the deal has been done. Negotiations are taking place at the moment, and we'll have to wait and see what comes out of that. Any questions on the issue? Basically a report, a note, really. Any questions? If not, then all show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leader.
The next one now then is 2 items. Kath Thomas. Welcome, Kath. And this is the disposal of 37 and 37A Clarence Street, Pontypool, to a registered social landlord.
Is to seek approval of 37 and 37A Clarence Street in Pontypool there to a registered social landlord, and to seek approval to proceed to the delivery stage of the proposal. So the key message is the project is a priority project within Vibrant and Viable Places, Pontypool Investment Fund. It will renovate a key gateway into Pontypool as part of the VVP programme, providing 2 new affordable housing units. It also has wider social, economical, social, environmental benefits too, enhancing the heritage asset and removing blight on a conservation area, challenging negative perceptions of the future economic prospects of the town, and good opportunity for local jobs and training opportunities. The background to it, members may recall, is that we secured £8 million under the programme, and half of that funding, just under half of that funding, goes to Pontypool regeneration. And within that mix, there was a development of a collaboration agreement which has the investment fund of 1.5 million. And in that, there is proposals to do several properties within the town, and one of the ones that has been identified by an RSL is the 37-38 Clarence Corner, which, as you all know, is in a hugely dilapidated condition. So the issues and findings, basically the valuation of the properties, if it was to be sold speculatively, would only be worth about 25 million. It's one of the first sort of issues that we need to understand. And then the value of the site, if the regeneration scheme was to go forward, is around 68,000, leaving a deficit of 371,000 to do the scheme. This then would be resolved by using VVP funding and social housing private finance. So therefore the significant deficit of the land receipt doesn't seem to be justified, and as a result the nominated RSL has formally submitted an offer of £1 in order to bring the scheme forward. Obviously, this is disposal at less best consideration, which the Council can do under its General Disposal Consent Wales 2003. I think the report highlights too that it does comply with both A and B of those conditions, in terms of that the improvement to business and public confidence in the future of economic prospects of the town by removing a significant blight on the main gateway, delivering well-managed historic and natural environment, improved employment prospects, working in partnership with an RSL, tackling Welsh Government's objectives of tackling poverty and supporting people into work and vulnerable residents into homes, if you like. And there will be 2 new affordable housing as a result. Then the officers involved in this have to go through 4 assessments, 4 different criteria. One of them is the development appraisal consideration, the design quality requirement, social housing and the property development grant methodology. As the report highlights, it complies with all of those in the main, possibly without exception, the social housing grant, which is the cost of these are higher than the normal cost of social housing scheme. However, again, we feel that there are significant social, economic, environmental improvements that can be made, and they are highlighted here, where the significant conservation deficit, owing to its importance within the Pontypool Town Conservation Area, this incurs significant abnormal costs associated with the restoration of heritage features. The prominence of the scheme located at the gateway into Pontypool means that it has a wider impact on the public perception of significant restoration, and it has wider regeneration benefits associated with the delivery of the VVP investment. So there are a number of risks that have been highlighted. Obviously, the main one is the tender rates could come in higher. That has been catered for with high funding in the package, and so we could manage any increase of a 10% on that. And then basically it goes to the recommendation, I guess, really, in terms of we're asking Cabinet to grant approval for 3738 Clarence Street to be sold for £1 to a social registered landlord. The Cabinet approves the allocation of 318,926 VVP grants to this project, that legal and asset management officers be authorised to negotiate detailed contract terms and undertake the disposal of the properties, that Cabinet grants delegated authority to the Deputy Leader as the exec portfolio holder for resources and governance to determine any other matters pertaining to the disposal of 37A Clarence Street as may be required. Thank you.
Quite a long one, Kath. Any comments? Anybody want to ask a question? Any questions? Lou?
Just like to correct Kath, I would like to go shopping with her. She said 25 million, it's actually 25,000.
Sorry, yeah. Yes, 25,000 speculative, yeah.
Questions? All agree the report, Joe? Thank you very much, Kath. That concludes the meeting, and I'll close the meeting.